Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main window of his ship, watching Kepler Station grow smaller in the distance. The massive space station had been his home for 6 years. Now he was leaving it forever. His cargo ship, New Dawn, carried 200 humans and their belongings. They were heading back to Earth just like millions of other humans across the galaxy. Jake felt tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the deep tiredness that comes from fighting a losing battle for too long. The Galactic Council had made their feelings about humans very clear. What started as simple safety rules had become something much worse. Now humans were called dangerous primitives in official council documents. "Captain, we're clear of the station's gravity field," said his pilot, Maria Santos. She had worked on Kepler Station for 8 years, fixing ships and teaching young aliens how to repair engines. Now she was leaving too, along with everyone else. "Thank you, Maria. Set course." "For Earth," Jake said. He turned away from the window. Looking back wouldn't help anyone now. In the station's control room, Dr. Lisa Hamilton was finishing the last evacuation check. She had been the chief science officer on Kepler Station for 12 years. She knew every system, every pipe, every wire in the place. The alien workers who were staying behind had asked her many questions about how things worked. She had answered them all, written detailed instructions, and even made video guides. She wanted to help them succeed after she was gone. "Dr. Hamilton, the last human transport is ready to leave," said her assistant, a young Zephyrian named Kethman. His blue skin looked sad, and his large eyes showed worry. "I know, Kethman. Are you sure you don't want to ask me anything else about the water recycling system? It can be tricky sometimes," Lisa said. "We have all your notes and videos." "We will manage," Kethman replied, but he didn't sound sure. Lisa picked up her small bag. Everything else had been packed and sent ahead. "I hope so. Take care of this place. It's a good station." She walked to the transport dock, where the last group of humans was waiting. They looked sad but not angry. That was the strange thing about this whole situation. The humans weren't shouting or making threats. They weren't promising revenge or saying mean things about the aliens. They were just leaving quietly, like guests who knew when the party was over on Earth. Commander Alex Carter was working 18 hours a day to coordinate the biggest movement of people in human history. His office was full of computer screens showing ship movements, supply lists, and housing arrangements. Nearly 12 million humans were coming home from 847 different star systems. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with a million pieces. But Alex had good people helping him. "Sir, the transport from Rigel 7 just checked in." "They're on schedule," reported Lieutenant Kevin Brooks. He had been Alex's right-hand man for 5 years, and he never seemed to get tired or stressed. "Good. What about the industrial equipment from the mining stations?" Alex asked, all packed and loaded. "The aliens said they didn't need it, so we're bringing everything home. The mining robots, the ore processors, even the small repair tools." Alex nodded. The aliens had made a big mistake. They thought human equipment was just simple tools that anyone could use. They didn't understand that human-made machines were designed to work together in complex ways. Without humans to maintain and operate them, most of this equipment would stop working within months. But Alex didn't say this out loud. The humans had decided to leave with dignity. They would honor their contracts, finish their work, and go home without causing trouble. If the aliens wanted to learn the hard way, that was their choice. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Ben Rodriguez was loading the last of the medical supplies onto his ship homeward bound. He had been running a hospital on Thermia Prime for 9 years. The local aliens had excellent doctors, but they relied on human-made medical equipment and drugs. Ben had tried to teach them how to make the medicines themselves, but they said it was too complicated and not worth learning. "Captain Rodriguez, please wait," called Dr. Velanine, the head of the alien medical staff. She was a tall, thin creature with green skin and 4 arms. "Are you really taking all the medicine-making machines?" "Yes, Dr. Velanine. These machines belong to my company." "The council made it clear that human businesses are no longer welcome here," Ben said. "But what will we do?" We don't know how to make the heart medicine or the brain surgery drugs. Ben stopped loading and looked at her. I spent 2 years trying to teach your staff how to use these machines. Every time I offered training, I was told it wasn't necessary because humans would always be here to handle the technical work. Dr. Velanine's skin turned a darker green, which meant she was embarrassed. We thought you enjoyed doing this work for us. We did enjoy it. But enjoying something and being forced to do it are different things, Ben said gently. I left complete instruction manuals in your office. Everything you need to know is written down. He finished loading his ship and walked up the ramp. Dr. Velanine watched him go, finally understanding that her people had made a terrible mistake. Back on Kepler Station, Ambassador Kethver was talking to his assistant about the human departure. Kethver was an important Zephyrian diplomat who had worked with humans for 20 years. He was one of the few aliens who truly respected human abilities. Sir, I don't understand why the humans are so calm about leaving. If my people were forced out like this, we would be furious. We would make threats and demand justice, said his assistant. Kethver looked out at the empty docking bay where human ships used to be. That's exactly why humans are more dangerous than we realized. When most species get angry, they shout and make noise. Everyone knows they're upset. But humans get quiet when they're really angry. They think and plan instead of shouting. You think they're planning revenge? I think they're planning to survive. And for humans, that's the same thing, Kethver said. He had seen humans solve impossible problems before. They had a way of finding solutions that no one else could see. The assistant looked confused. But they're just leaving. How is that dangerous? Kethver didn't answer right away. He was thinking about all the things humans did that other species took for granted. They fixed machines that broke down. They designed better systems when the old ones failed. They solved problems that had puzzled alien scientists for years. And they did it all so quietly that most aliens forgot humans were doing it. Have you ever tried to run the station's main computer without human help? Kethver asked. No, sir, that's technical work. Humans always handled that. Exactly. And now there are no humans left to handle it. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out on thousands of stations, planets, and ships. Humans were packing their things and leaving without drama or anger. They finished their jobs, trained their replacements as best they could, and said polite goodbyes. The alien species watched them go with mixed feelings. Some felt relieved that the dangerous primitives were finally gone. Others felt worried about who would do all the technical work the humans had been handling. A few, like Ambassador Kethver, felt a growing sense that something terrible was about to happen. But the humans just kept leaving quietly and efficiently. They loaded their ships with equipment, supplies, and personal belongings. They closed their businesses, ended their contracts, and headed home to Earth and the other human colonies. Captain Jake Morrison looked at his crew as they traveled through space toward home. They were good people who had worked hard to build something positive in alien space. Now they were refugees in their own galaxy, forced out by fear and prejudice. But Jake wasn't angry anymore. He was thinking about the future. Humans had learned a lot during their years working with alien species. They had seen new technologies, studied different ways of thinking, and solved problems they never would have encountered on Earth. Now they were bringing all that knowledge home. And if the aliens who had forced them out ever realized what they had lost, it would be too late to fix their mistakes. The human exodus continued, ship by ship, family by family. They left silently, with dignity and grace. But they also left with something the aliens didn't expect. They left with plans. 3 months had passed since the last human ship left Kepler Station. Station Chief Veltar was beginning to understand what a terrible mistake the Council had made. The massive space station that had once been the pride of the Zephyrian fleet was slowly falling apart. Chief, the water recycling system is running at only 40% efficiency, reported Kethman, who was now trying to do the job that Dr. Lisa Hamilton had handled perfectly for 12 years. His blue skin had turned pale with stress, and his large eyes showed constant worry. "What about the instruction manuals the humans left?" Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer. "I follow them exactly, but something always goes wrong. The humans made it look so easy, but there are hundreds of small decisions they made every day that aren't written in any manual." Veltar walked to the main observation deck and looked out at the busy docking area. Ships still came and went, but many of the complex services that Kepler Station had once provided were no longer available. The advanced ship repair services had stopped working. The medical center couldn't make the medicines that travelers needed. Even the food production systems were producing less than half of what they used to make. On the other side of the galaxy, Senator Quindle was facing similar problems on Altair 7, the planet's main computer network was having constant problems. The traffic control systems that managed millions of flying vehicles were failing several times each day. The power grid that supplied energy to 40 billion people was becoming unstable. "Senator, we need to do something about the computer problems," said his chief engineer, a tall Altarian with golden skin named Tekover. "The humans designed these systems to work together in ways we don't fully understand. When one part fails, it affects everything else. Can't you just replace the failing parts with new ones?" "We've tried that, sir. The new parts work fine by themselves, but they don't communicate properly with the rest of the system. The humans didn't just install equipment. They created a living network where every piece talks to every other piece." Senator Quindle felt a growing sense of panic. He had been one of the loudest voices demanding that humans be classified as dangerous primitives. Now his own planet was slowly becoming uninhabitable because those same primitives were no longer around to maintain the systems they had built in the Thermian system. The mining operations that had made the collective rich for 50 years were shutting down one by one. Captain Danny Murphy, who had once managed the main extraction facility, was now on a transport ship heading home to Earth, but his replacement, a Thermian engineer named Stonekeeper, was discovering that human mining techniques were far more complex than anyone had realized. "Foreman, the extraction robots have stopped working again," reported one of the mining supervisors. "They dig for a few hours, then shut down with error messages we can't understand." Stonekeeper looked at the diagnostic reports with growing frustration. The humans had programmed the mining robots to make thousands of tiny decisions every minute. They analyzed soil composition, adjusted their digging patterns, and coordinated with each other to avoid conflicts. The programming was so sophisticated that it was more like artificial intelligence than simple automation. "Have you tried resetting them to basic mining mode?" "Yes, sir. In basic mode, they work very slowly and break down frequently. The humans had them running at 3 times normal efficiency with almost no maintenance problems." The truth was becoming clear across the Thermian collective. Humans hadn't just operated mining equipment. They had turned mining into an art form, finding ways to extract more resources with less damage to the environment and equipment. Without human oversight, the collective's main source of income was disappearing. Chancellor Morduck called another emergency council session as reports of system failures poured in from across the galaxy. The great chamber that had once echoed with proud speeches about galactic superiority was now filled with desperate pleas for help. "The situation is becoming critical," announced Trade Minister Fluxara, whose tentacles writhed with anxiety. 37 systems have reported major infrastructure failures. Food production is down 20%. Medical supplies are running out on 12 worlds. How is this possible?" demanded General Zextai. "We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. We have trillions of citizens and thousands of worlds. How can the absence of one primitive species cause such problems?" Ambassador Keffer, who had remained quiet during most of the session, finally stood to speak. "Because that primitive species was doing all the real work while we took credit for their achievements." The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to hear the truth, but it was becoming impossible to ignore. "The humans didn't just maintain our systems," Keffer continued. "They improved them constantly. Every time something broke, they found a way." to make it work better than before. Every time we needed something new, they figured out how to build it. We became dependent on their creativity and problem-solving skills without even realizing it. On distant Earth, Commander Alex Carter was reading intelligence reports about the situation in Council space. The information came from human civilians who had chosen to stay behind, married to aliens, or too old to make the journey home. Their messages painted a picture of growing chaos and desperation. "Sir, the reports are getting worse every day," said Lieutenant Kevin Brooks. "The Rigel 7 spaceport has closed completely. They can't maintain the docking systems without human technicians. The medical center on Procyon 4 is out of antibiotics because they can't operate the pharmaceutical manufacturing equipment." Alex felt a mixture of sadness and anger. The humans had tried so hard to help the alien species succeed. They had shared their knowledge freely, trained alien workers, and built systems that should have lasted for decades. But the aliens had never really learned. They had become dependent instead of independent. "Any word on whether the Council is planning to negotiate?" "No, sir. If anything, they seem to be getting more hostile. Some of their leaders are claiming that humans deliberately sabotaged the systems before leaving." Alex shook his head. It was so much easier for the aliens to blame humans than to admit their own failures. They couldn't accept that the species they had looked down on was actually more capable than they were. Dr. Peter Hayes was working late in his laboratory on Luna Base, analyzing samples of alien technology that humans had brought back with them. What he found confirmed his worst fears about the aliens' technical capabilities. "The Council species are excellent at using technology, but terrible at understanding it," he explained to his research team. "They can operate complex machines perfectly, but they don't know why the machines work or how to fix them when something goes wrong." His assistant, Dr. Carral Wright, looked at the alien computer components under her microscope. "These circuits are beautifully made, but the design is incredibly inefficient. A human engineer could improve the performance by 50% with simple modifications." "That's exactly what we did for decades," Peter said. "We took their basic designs and made them better. They thought we were just doing maintenance, but we were actually redesigning their entire technological foundation." Back in Council space, the failures were accelerating. On Vega Prime, the atmospheric processing plants that kept the air breathable for 30 billion people were beginning to malfunction. The alien technicians had the maintenance schedules that humans had created, but they didn't understand the principles behind the timing. Plant supervisor Atmorig stared at the control panels that had once been managed by a human engineer named Lisa Rodriguez. The readings were all wrong, but he didn't know what they meant or how to fix them. "Sir, pressure in Sector 7 is dropping again," reported his assistant. "Check the human manual." "What does it say to do?" "The manual says to adjust valve settings, but it doesn't explain which valves or how much to adjust them." The human engineer always seemed to know instinctively. What the aliens didn't understand was that human engineers didn't just follow procedures. They listened to the machines, watched for subtle changes, and made hundreds of tiny adjustments based on experience and intuition. The written manuals could only capture a small part of what humans actually did. Captain Ben Rodriguez, now safely aboard his ship heading toward Earth, received another desperate message from his former hospital on Thermia Prime. Dr. Velanin was begging him to return, offering twice his former salary and a promotion to chief medical officer. "Captain, are you going to reply?" asked his communications. Officer Ben thought about all the years he had spent training Thermian doctors and nurses. He had taught them surgical techniques, showed them how to diagnose difficult cases, and explained the chemistry behind the medicines they used, but they had always expected him to be there to handle the really hard problems. "Send a reply. Tell Dr. Velanin that I'm willing to help, but only as a consultant working for an independent human medical company. No more working as an employee of the Thermian health system." The message was clear. If the aliens wanted human expertise, they would have to pay for it properly and treat humans as equals, not as servants. Similar messages were being sent across the galaxy. Human engineers, doctors, and technicians were willing to help solve the crisis, but only on their own terms. The days of humans working for alien governments as second-class citizens were over. The council leadership was beginning to realize that they faced a choice. They could swallow their pride and negotiate with humans as equals, or they could watch their civilization slowly collapse. Unfortunately for everyone, their pride was stronger than their common sense. General Zextai was already talking about military solutions. If the humans won't come back voluntarily, we'll have to make them come back. They obviously sabotaged our systems before they left. Making them fix the damage is only fair. Ambassador Kethver tried one more time to make his colleagues see reason. General, the humans didn't sabotage anything. We just never learned to maintain what they built for us. If we attack Earth, we'll be fighting the people who know how to fix our problems. Earth is one small planet. We control hundreds of worlds. They'll surrender quickly when they see our fleet. The Council was about to make the biggest mistake in galactic history. They were going to attack the only people who could save them. Admiral Susan Blake sat in her office on Luna Base, reading the intercepted messages from the Galactic Council. The alien government was in complete panic. Their meetings had become shouting matches. Their supply systems were failing faster than anyone could fix them. The proud council that had forced humans to leave was now facing the collapse of everything they had built. Admiral, we're getting more emergency signals from Council Space, said her communications officer, Lieutenant Danny Murphy. 3 more. Star systems have lost their main power grids. The Altarian Republic is asking for help with their food production centers. Susan looked at the data on her screen. It was worse than she had expected. The aliens had been completely dependent on human engineering and maintenance. Now that humans were gone, their entire civilization was breaking down. Any response from our government? President Foster says we're not to respond to any requests for help. We're to monitor only. Susan nodded. It was the right choice. The humans had tried to help for decades, and the aliens had repaid them with discrimination and exile. Now the Council would have to solve their own problems. On the other side of the moon, Dr. Peter Hayes was analyzing the Council's military communications. What he found made his blood run cold. The Council wasn't just panicking about their failing systems. They were preparing for war. Peter called his supervisor immediately. Sir, you need to see this. The Council is mobilizing their fleet. They're not trying to negotiate with us. They're planning to attack. General Robert Kim looked at the intercepted messages on his screen. The Council's military leaders were convinced that humans had somehow sabotaged their systems before leaving. They believed the only way to fix everything was to force humans back to their old jobs at gunpoint. How big is their fleet? General Kim asked. Over 3,000 ships from 47 different species. It's the largest military force in galactic history, Peter said. General Kim felt a cold anger growing in his chest. The aliens had forced humans out, watched their own systems fail, and now they wanted to blame humans for their problems? Worse, they planned to use violence to force humans back into slavery. Send this information to President Foster immediately, and Peter. Start working on our response options. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, Chancellor Mordock was trying to control a meeting that had turned into chaos. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting at each other, blaming everyone except themselves for the crisis. The humans obviously planted some kind of virus in our systems before they left, declared Senator Quindle. This level of system failure can't be natural. I disagree, said Ambassador Kethver. I worked with humans for 20 years. They're not the type to sabotage systems. They're too honest for that kind of behavior. Then explain why everything is breaking down at the same time, shouted General Zextai from his seat in the military section. Kethver stood up slowly. He was old and tired, but his voice was still strong. Because we never learned how to maintain the systems ourselves. We let humans do all the real work while we took credit for their achievements. Now they're gone, and we're seeing what we're actually capable of without them. The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to admit that Kethver was right. It was easier to blame the humans than to accept their own failures. General Zextai broke the silence. It doesn't matter why the systems are failing. What matters is fixing them. The humans created this problem, so they need to solve it. If they won't come back willingly, we'll make them come back. You're talking about war against Earth, Keffer said. The humans have been peaceful, but that doesn't mean they're weak. We might not like what we find if we attack them. Earth is one small planet with a few billion people. We represent hundreds of worlds with trillions of citizens. The humans will surrender quickly once they see our fleet, General Zextai replied. Confidently, Chancellor Mordek called for a vote. The result was close, but the military faction won. The Galactic Council officially declared humans to be enemies of galactic stability and authorized military action to bring them back. Ambassador Keffer walked out of the chamber without saying another word. He had seen humans work under pressure. Therefore, they didn't panic like other species. They planned, prepared, and struck back harder than anyone expected. The Council was making the biggest mistake in galactic history, on Earth. President Karen Foster called an emergency meeting of the reformed United Earth Assembly. The alien fleet was already moving toward human space. They would arrive at Earth in less than 2 months. Ladies and gentlemen, we face the greatest threat in human history, President Foster began. The Galactic Council has decided that forcing the U.S. back into servitude is easier than learning to solve their own problems. The assembly hall was quiet. These were the leaders of humanity, representatives from every human colony and settlement. They had been preparing for this moment since the exodus began. Defense Minister Carol Wright stood up to address the assembly. Our intelligence shows that the Council fleet includes battle cruisers, fighter wings, and invasion ships. They're not coming to negotiate. They're coming to conquer. What are our options? Asked Representative John Davis from the Mars colonies. We fight, said Admiral Blake, who had joined the meeting by video link from Luna Base. We've spent the last 6 months preparing for this possibility. The aliens think they know what humans are capable of. They're about to learn they were wrong. President Foster looked around the room. Every face showed the same determination. Humans had tried peace and cooperation. They had been repaid with exile and now war. The time for being quiet and polite was over. Admiral Blake, what do we have to work with? Susan Blake smiled for the first time in months. Madam President, while the aliens were celebrating getting rid of us, we've been busy. We have ships they've never seen, weapons they don't understand, and defenses they can't imagine. The truth was that humans had been holding back for decades. While working in alien space, they had continued to develop new technologies in secret. They had improved on alien designs, created new materials, and solved engineering problems that alien scientists thought were impossible. More importantly, humans had learned from every species they worked with. They had studied Zephyrian energy systems, Altarian computer networks, and Thermian mining techniques. Then they had made everything better. The Council thinks we're primitive because we maintain their old systems instead of building flashy new ones. Admiral Blake continued. They never realized we were learning from their mistakes and improving on their designs. Colonel Danny Murphy, now commanding Earth's orbital defense network, had been working day and night to prepare for the invasion. The defense platforms around Earth looked simple from the outside, but they contained technology that was 50 years ahead of anything in Council space. Sir, the new shield generators are online, reported his chief engineer, Lieutenant Amy Johnson. All orbital platforms are ready for combat. Danny looked at the tactical display showing Earth's defenses. To alien eyes, it would look like Earth had only basic protection. They would expect an easy victory. That was exactly what Danny wanted them to think. Dotkin Rachel Martinez had been given command of humanity's newest warship, the Defiant. It was the first ship built with all the improvements humans had made to alien technology. The ship looked elegant and simple, but it was the most advanced vessel in the galaxy. Captain, all systems are green. We're ready for battle, said her first officer. Commander Steve Wilson. Rachel looked at the stars through the ship's main window. Somewhere out there, thousands of alien ships were coming to destroy her home and enslave her people. They thought humans were weak because humans had been kind. They were about to learn the difference. The other human ships were getting ready too. Each one contained technologies that the Council had never seen. Humans had spent decades being underestimated, treated as servants and maintenance workers. Now they would show the galaxy what humans could really do when they stopped being polite. The alien fleet was coming to force humans back into their old roles. But humans weren't the same species that had left alien space quietly a few months ago. They were angry, united, and ready to fight for their freedom. The Council had pressed the wrong button. They had turned a peaceful exodus into a war. And they were about to discover that the quiet, helpful humans they remembered were also the most dangerous species in the galaxy. When pushed too far, the stage was set for a battle that would change the galaxy forever. General Zextai stood on the bridge of his flagship, Galactic Pride, as the massive Council fleet approached the Sol system. 3,000 ships from 47 different species flew in perfect formation. It was the most powerful military force ever assembled in galactic history. The general felt confident that this would be the shortest war ever fought. "Sir, we're detecting the human home system ahead. Initial scans show minimal defenses," reported his tactical officer, a young Altarian named Voldak, as expected. "The humans have had barely 6 months to prepare. They probably thought we would never find the courage to attack them," General Zextai said with satisfaction, but the general was wrong about many things. He was wrong about human defenses, wrong about human technology, and most importantly, wrong about what humans did when they were truly angry on Earth. President Karen Foster watched the alien fleet approach on the main display in the Defense Command Center. The aliens had sent a message demanding immediate surrender and the return of all humans to their former positions in Council space. She had sent back a simple 2-word reply, "Never again." "Madam President, the alien fleet is spreading out to surround our system. They have us outnumbered 10-1, reported Admiral Blake from the Luna Base Command Center. "Numbers aren't everything, Admiral. Are our people ready?" "Yes, ma'am. All ships are in position. All defense platforms are online. The aliens are about to get a very big surprise." Captain Rachel Martinez waited in her ship Defiant just behind Earth's moon. Her small fleet of 12 human ships looked tiny compared to the alien armada, but appearances could be deceiving. Each human ship contained technology that the Council had never imagined possible. "Captain, enemy ships are moving into attack formation. They're targeting our orbital platforms first," said Commander Steve Wilson. "Let them come closer." "We want them to think they're winning," Rachel replied calmly. She had studied every ship type in the alien fleet. She knew their weapons, their shields, and most importantly, their weaknesses. General Zextai watched the tactical display with growing excitement. The human defenses looked pathetic compared to his mighty fleet. A few small orbital platforms, and a handful of ships that seemed to be hiding behind the moon. This would be easier than he had hoped. Begin the attack. Target the defense platforms first, then the ships. Leave the planet intact. We need the humans alive to fix our systems," he ordered. The alien fleet opened fire with thousands of energy weapons. Bright beams of light streaked across space toward Earth's orbital platforms. The general expected to see the platforms explode immediately. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams hit the platforms and simply disappeared. The orbital defense stations absorbed the alien weapons fire like it was nothing more than flashlight beams. Not a single platform was damaged. "Sir, our weapons aren't working. The humans have some kind of new shield technology," Veldoc reported with panic in his voice. "Impossible. Human shields are decades behind ours. Increase power to maximum and fire again." The alien fleet fired again with even more power. The result was the same. Earth's defenses absorbed every shot without taking any damage. General Zextai felt his confidence start to crack. Colonel Danny Murphy smiled as he watched the alien attack from his command center on Earth's orbital defense station. The shields weren't just absorbing the energy weapons. They were storing the power for later use. Every shot the aliens fired was making Earth's defenses stronger. Sir, energy storage at 60% and climbing. Should we return fire? Asked Lieutenant Amy Johnson. Not yet. Let them waste more ammunition first. I want them to realize how helpless they are before we show them what real weapons look like. Captain Ben Rodriguez had positioned his medical ship, Mercy, far from the battle, but he was watching everything through the tactical network. As a doctor, he didn't like violence, but he understood that sometimes people had to fight to protect what they loved. The aliens still don't get it, he said to his crew. They think we're the same people who left their space quietly. They don't realize that leaving quietly was a choice, not weakness. On the alien flagship, panic was starting to spread. The humans weren't fighting back yet, but their defenses were completely stopping the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. General Zextai had never seen anything like it. Sir, perhaps we should try to negotiate. The humans might be willing to discuss terms, suggested Ambassador Kethver, who had reluctantly joined the fleet to serve as a diplomatic advisor. Never, we came here to bring them back, and that's what we'll do. Send in the fighter squadrons. Maybe smaller, faster ships can get through their shields. 2,000 alien fighter craft launched from the larger ships and swarmed toward Earth. They moved fast and attacked from all directions, hoping to overwhelm the human defenses. Instead, they flew into a trap that had been waiting for them. Captain Rachel Martinez finally gave the order her crew had been waiting for. All ships begin attack pattern Alpha, show them what humans can really do. The 12 human ships that had been hiding behind the moon suddenly appeared in different locations around the solar system. They had moved so fast that the alien sensors couldn't track them. One moment they were behind the moon, the next moment they were scattered throughout the battle area. The Defiant appeared directly behind a group of alien cruisers. Rachel's weapons officer, Lieutenant Kevin Brooks, fired the ship's main guns. The human weapons didn't look impressive. They fired thin beams of blue light that seemed almost gentle compared to the alien energy cannons. But when the blue beams hit the alien ships, something extraordinary happened. The alien shields didn't just fail. They collapsed completely, taking the ship's main power systems with them. 3 alien cruisers went dark in seconds, drifting helplessly through space. What kind of weapons are those? General Zextai demanded. Unknown, sir. Our sensors can't identify the energy type. It's like nothing in our databases. Vildoc replied. The truth was that humans had learned from every species they had worked with for decades. They had studied Zephyrian energy manipulation, Altarian computer systems, and Thermian matter conversion. Then they had combined all these technologies in ways that no single alien species had ever imagined. The human weapons didn't just attack shields. They attacked the quantum foundations that made shields possible. It was technology that shouldn't have existed for another 100 years, but humans had developed it in secret while the aliens thought they were just doing maintenance work. More. Human ships appeared around the battle area, moving with impossible speed and precision. They struck alien vessels with surgical accuracy, disabling ships without destroying them. It was clear that the humans could have wiped out the entire alien fleet, but they were choosing to be merciful. Admiral Susan Blake coordinated the battle from Luna Base with calm efficiency. She had planned this engagement for months, studying every ship type in the alien fleet and developing specific countermeasures for each one. Admiral, the alien fighter squadrons are breaking off their attack. They're trying to retreat to their main ships, reported her tactical officer. Don't let them regroup. Send our fighters to escort them back to their carriers. No shooting unless they fire first. Earth's fighter craft appeared among the alien squadrons like ghosts. The human pilots flew with incredible skill, herding the alien fighters back toward their home ships without firing a shot. It was a display of superiority that was more demoralizing than any weapon. On the alien flagship, General Zextai realized that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. These weren't the quiet maintenance workers who had left Council space without making trouble. These were warriors with technology that made his fleet look like antiques. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet, Veldoc announced. Put it on screen. Admiral Blake's face appeared on the main display. She looked calm and professional, but her eyes were hard as steel. General Zextai, this is Admiral Susan Blake of the Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is completely outmatched. I'm offering you one chance to withdraw from our system peacefully. You can't defeat 3,000 ships with 12 vessels, the general replied, though his voice had lost its earlier confidence. General, I've just disabled 30 of your ships without destroying a single one. Your weapons can't penetrate our shields, but our weapons can disable your entire fleet in minutes. The only reason your people are still alive is because we choose to show mercy. General Zextai looked at his tactical display. It was true. 30 alien ships were drifting powerless, their crews unharmed but completely helpless. The human ships continued to move through his fleet like they owned space itself. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to go home and tell the Council what you learned here today. Humans left your space quietly because we chose peace. You attacked our home because you chose war. Now you know the difference between human kindness and human weakness. The alien general stared at the display, finally understanding the terrible mistake the Council had made. They had pushed the wrong species too far. General Zextai watched his once mighty fleet limp away from Earth with damaged pride and disabled ships. Half of his vessels were being towed by the other half. The humans had let them go, but the message was clear. Earth was no longer the helpless world the Council remembered. It had become something far more dangerous. The journey back to Council space took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of silence from ships that had left home expecting easy victory. 3 weeks for the alien crews to think about what they had seen. The humans hadn't just defeated them. They had made the defeat look easy. When the fleet finally reached Nexus Prime, the Council's emergency session was already waiting. The chamber was packed, with representatives from every member species. They had all heard rumors about the failed invasion, but no one knew the full truth yet. Chancellor Mordock called the session to order. General Zextai, report on your mission to bring the humans back. The general stood slowly, his proud military bearing was gone, replaced by the tired posture of someone who had learned a hard lesson. The mission failed completely. The human defenses were beyond anything we expected. Their technology is decades ahead of ours. Impossible, shouted Senator Quindle. Humans are primitives. They were our servants and maintenance workers. That's what we thought too, General Zextai replied quietly. We were wrong. While we thought they were just fixing our old systems, they were learning from every species in the galaxy and improving everything they touched. Ambassador Kethver had remained silent during the general's report, but now he stood to speak. How many ships did we lose? None were destroyed, but 67 were disabled. The humans could have wiped out our entire fleet, but they chose not to. They let us retreat with a warning instead. The chamber fell silent. The idea that humans had been merciful to their attackers was somehow more frightening than if they had been ruthless. It meant humans were not only more powerful than expected, but also more controlled and strategic. While the Council argued about what to do next, their civilization continued to collapse. On Thermia Prime, the main hospital had shut down because they couldn't make the medicines that human doctors had provided for years. On Altair 7, the computer networks that controlled city services were failing one by one. Dr. Velanine tried desperately to follow the instruction manuals that Captain Ben Rodriguez had left behind, but the medicine-making process was more complex than she had realized. Every step depended on the previous step being done exactly right. One small mistake would ruin an entire batch of life-saving drugs. Dr. Velanine, we have 50 patients who need heart medicine, but our last batch came out wrong again, reported. Her assistant, keep trying. We have to figure this out, she said, but her voice showed her growing despair. 3 months ago, she had thought making medicine was simple work that anyone could learn. Now she understood why humans had spent years studying to become doctors and engineers on Kepler Station. The water recycling system finally broke down completely. Kethman had followed Dr. Lisa Hamilton's instructions carefully, but he didn't understand the deeper principles behind the system's design. When something went wrong that wasn't covered in the manual, he didn't know how to fix it. "Station Commander, we have maybe 2 weeks of water left in emergency storage," he reported to his supervisor. "Can't you repair the system?" "I don't know how the humans always handled problems like this. They understood how all the parts worked together." The station commander realized they would have to evacuate if they couldn't fix the water system. Kepler Station, which had been a thriving hub of trade and diplomacy, would become an empty shell drifting in space. Similar scenes were playing out across Council space. Systems that had worked perfectly for decades were breaking down because the people who really understood them were gone. The aliens had become so dependent on human expertise that they couldn't maintain their own civilization without help. On Earth, President Karen Foster was reading reports from human intelligence agents who had remained in Council space. The situation was worse than anyone had expected. Entire worlds were facing shortages of food, medicine, and basic services. "Madam President, we're receiving hundreds of requests for humanitarian aid," said her chief of staff, Maria Santos, who had returned from space to work in the government. "From the same people who called us dangerous primitives and tried to invade our home?" "Yes, ma'am. The requests are coming from individual planets and stations, not from the council government. The local leaders are desperate." President Foster thought carefully. The human fleet could easily conquer council space now, but that wasn't what humans wanted. They had left alien space to find peace, not to become conquerors themselves. "What do our people think? Should we help them?" Dr. Amy Johnson, now serving as Earth's chief diplomat, had been working on this exact question. "Our surveys show that most humans want to help with humanitarian aid, but only under strict conditions. We won't go back to being second-class citizens." President Foster nodded. "Set up a meeting with any council representatives who want to discuss a new relationship. But make it clear that the old days are over. We're not servants anymore." Captain Jake Morrison had been thinking about the same issues aboard his ship. The aliens who had forced him to leave his home were now begging for the help they had rejected. Part of him wanted to let them solve their own problems, but a bigger part of him remembered that many individual aliens had been kind to humans, even if their governments had not. "Captain, we're receiving a personal message from Kethman on Kepler Station. He's asking for help with their water system," reported Lieutenant Kevin Brooks. Jake remembered Kethman. The young Zephyrian had been a good worker and had always treated humans with respect. He had been caught up in his government's bad decisions, but that didn't make him a bad person. Send a reply. "Tell him we'll send a technical team to help, but they come as equals, not as servants." On Luna Base, Admiral Susan Blake was coordinating humanity's response to the crisis. Human ships were beginning to return to Council space, but this time they carried doctors, engineers, and aid workers who came as partners, not employees. "Admiral, the first relief convoy is ready to depart for the Thermia system. Dr. Rodriguez volunteered to lead the medical team," reported Commander Steve Wilson. "Good. Make sure they understand the new rules. We help because we choose to help, not because we have to." Captain Ben Rodriguez had indeed volunteered to return to Thermia Prime, but not as the same person who had left months earlier. He came back as the representative of a free humanity, offering aid to people who needed it. When he arrived at the hospital, Dr. Velanine met him at the docking bay. Her green skin looked pale with exhaustion and worry. "Captain Rodriguez, thank you for coming. We have tried so hard to follow your instructions, but everything keeps going wrong." "Dr. Velanine, I'm here to help, but things are different now. We work together as equals, or I leave." She nodded quickly. "Yes, anything you want. We just need the medicine-making machines to work again." Ben smiled. "Then let's get started. But this time I'm going to teach you everything, not just the basic steps. You need to understand the science behind the process, not just follow directions." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were taking place. Human engineers returned to fix the systems they had built, but they came as teachers, not as servants. Human doctors provided medical care, but they insisted on training local staff to continue the work independently. The council government tried to maintain their authority, but it was too late. Individual worlds and stations were making their own agreements with humanity. The old system of species-based hierarchy was breaking down, replaced by practical cooperation between people who needed each other. Ambassador Kethvar finally got his chance to meet with human representatives. The meeting took place on a neutral station, with both sides sitting at the same table as equals. Ambassador, the Council is prepared to offer humans improved status within our government. He began. Dr. Amy Johnson smiled politely but firmly. Ambassador, humans are not interested in status within your government. We're interested in partnership between independent equals. What does that mean? It means the Galactic Council either reforms to treat all species as equals, or humanity will help individual worlds create a new organization that does. Ketha realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had changed forever. Humans were no longer asking for permission to be treated fairly. They were offering cooperation to those who deserved it and ignoring those who didn't. Within a year, the old Galactic Council had dissolved. In its place, a new galactic alliance formed, with humans as founding members, not servants. The species that had learned to work with humans as partners prospered. Those that continued to believe in their own superiority were left behind. Captain Jake Morrison stood once again on Kepler Station, but this time he wore the uniform of the Galactic Alliance, not a maintenance worker's coveralls. The station was running better than ever, with humans and aliens working together as a real team. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. When you take good people for granted and then try to force them back, you might discover they're not as helpless as you thought. Humans had left silently when pushed, but when the Council pressed the wrong button and chose violence, they had found out what humans could really do. The age of human servitude was over. The age of true galactic cooperation had begun.